A good Wednesday evening to you, everybody. For almost 2 years now, it's been difficult, sometimes impossible, to cross into Canada, putting a strain on families, businesses, commerce. Well, with cases plummeting on both sides of the border, some of the pandemic restrictions are getting loosened with the hope that we'll continue on that path back to normal. So here's what's new. To get into Canada, you've needed to show proof of a negative molecular test. Well, starting February 28th, later this month, a negative rapid antigen test will also qualify. Those give results faster, they're sometimes easier to find, tend to be cheaper. Keep in mind, cross-border traffic is still limited to those who are fully vaccinated, but this testing change should make it a little bit easier. Keep in mind, at-home rapid tests will not work here because there's no proof that you are the one who actually did it, so there are some specifics to consider. How will this impact the important relationship between Western New York and Southern Ontario? Joining us live is Nick Dubanow, a member of the Town Council in Fort Erie representing Ward 2. Nick, it's great to have you back on. We talked to you a little over 3 months ago, right before the border was reopening to fully vaccinated travelers. Back then, you were concerned about the testing requirement. How much do you think these changes that have been announced by the Canadian government will help to alleviate some of the difficulty at the border?
Yeah, thanks for having me this evening to talk about this. To be perfectly honest, the issue of testing, I really don't think it's going to have that big of an impact to change from molecular to antigen testing. It's still a barrier to obtain testing. There's still a cost involved when we're talking about family unification. You know, you're talking 4, 5, possibly even 6 members of a family all need to pay for testing. We were really hoping at the very least we would see the reinstatement of the 72-hour period to at least allow Canadians to travel to the United States and then to return to Canada without a test. And it just seems so frustrating with Omicron being everywhere and even the World Health Organization talking about barriers to testing to see this continued with everything we've learned over the last few months about the stage we are in the pandemic.
So, Nick, there is one little bit of good news here, I think, that we learned today. So in terms of Canadians coming here to Western New York, I know that they still have to test in order to get back into Canada. The Erie County Health Department is opening up its free COVID testing, including with rapid testing. It's not an antigen test, it's still a molecular test, but you get the results very, very fast. As long as Canadians call ahead, they can go to these couple of Erie County testing sites. So that's something that addresses a little bit of that worry. But I wonder, is there lobbying underway in Canada there, your colleagues, saying to get rid of the testing requirement altogether?
Absolutely there is. And I really, this is a team effort. I have to give a lot of appreciation and credit to the border mayors group here in Ontario that we have who have been advocating for this issue, particularly our mayor here in Fort Erie, Wayne Reddekopp, and the mayor of Niagara Falls, Ontario, Jim Diodati. They've been pushing this issue, kind of bringing this to the federal government, kind of helping them understand that, this is a binational community here. There's a lot of individuals who cross back and forth, a lot of families who live on either side of the border. Even my own ward in Fort Erie, we have a lot of American citizens with family who live in the United States. It's a unique situation that we have here on the border. Just to comment about the testing with Erie County, I think that's fantastic. And certainly now, if the federal government is at least going to allow antigen testing, I think that might open up some opportunity for partnership to be able to do some of that testing, to kind of rebuild these family and economic connections that we've had on either side of the border. One thing that I would like to mention, because it wasn't entirely disappointing news that we got, the federal government is removing sort of their quasi quarantine requirement for children under 12 who cross the border. So, particularly families with children like mine, 2 years ago, we were supposed to go over to the Strong Museum over in Rochester, and those plans were scuttled. But now that requirement has been lifted, it's possible for us to take our children over to the United States, spend some time there, and then them not have to be off of school or out of daycare or childcare settings for 2 weeks. So as far as families with children that are trying to do things are concerned, that was very positive news, but we still have to work together to get this testing requirement removed. As you know, we don't have that requirement to enter the United States, and it just seems nonsensical to me with where we are in the pandemic to continue it on our side of the border.
Finally, Nick, I'm almost out of time, but I want to ask you, there's been a lot of coverage of what happened in Canada with the truckers protesting the vaccine mandate. That the vaccine mandate is still in effect, both ways into the U.S. and into Canada for everybody if you want to cross. But that aside, do you feel like we are at least inching closer to restoring that sort of relationship between Western New York and Southern Ontario?
I do think we are. Setting aside the political turmoil that we're experiencing in Canada right now, I do think that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I do think that we're going to get through this. And once we do, then we got to start putting the pieces together to ensure something like this doesn't happen to our community again.
Nick Dubanow is a town councilor in Fort Erie, just across the border. Nick, thanks for coming back on. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right.